Hi, this is Eric from Cafe Watercolor. It's been a while since I do a full-length painting demo, unedited. And I usually do that for my Patreon group, but I paused Patreon for about 2 months because I have some other big project that's really taking up my time, so I'm not able to give enough demo for my Patreon group. But I decided to do this one. So the story behind this is that I did a painting for my wife on her birthday. I referenced this exact same photo. I do like the painting that I painted. However, there's a little bit of drawing issue that I wish I could have done better. And after a few days staring at it, I just couldn't get over with it myself. So I decided to do it again. And this is not a very rare thing. I oftentimes will, do the same painting twice or even more, because if I believe that I can do better, I owe myself to try again. And I don't want to live with regret, knowing that during that time I can do better. Of course, after time goes by, you improve your skill and you can always do a better painting. But what I don't like to feel is that in that given time I can still do better. I knew that I could have done better, and I just kind of settled with not my best attempt. So here I am trying to do it again. And I'm doing a very, very loose drawing right now, and we'll get to the detail a little bit later. And I will probably split up this demo recording for between drawing and painting. It's kind of late right now, so I will probably just focusing on the drawing right now. And I will start from like the basic gesture of it. I already started a little bit before I hit record. So here's her head a little bit tilted, and so I'm going to do try to measure the structure and things like that, the proportion and everything. She is looking off to the side, and if you watch one of my short video, you note that I actually like when a portrait subject is not looking directly at the camera. Not because I don't like eye contact, but a lot of time when the person not looking at the camera, not so camera conscious, can actually look a little bit more natural. So my wife here, she is looking off to the side, actually looking quite natural. I love the lighting in this one, very nice and soft. This is inside of a mall, a restaurant in a mall. So since it's a shopping mall, it's very, very bright because you need to see the merchandise and everything, the clothes, very clearly. Right? So they often put very, very bright lighting all over the place. So her face is very well lit. All right. So zoom it in. You can see that when we separate three sections, from hairline to the brow line to the bottom of the nose to the chin. In between, halfway in this section is the bottom of the lip. So something like that. It's very kind of a blurry right now, and that's the purpose. My pencil is barely touching the paper, and through these I am going to roughly block out the shape and the placement of the facial feature. And hopefully as I tighten up the drawing, I will be able to get a more accurate drawing. Now, I like to do my drawing in a little bit more of a sort of freehand. That means that I don't like to trace over my drawing. I don't like to use the grid system. No judging if anybody's using it. It's a legit way of working, and probably easiest way to get a very accurate portrait drawing. But I just don't really like to do that. I kind of like to figure it out myself. And even if it's not completely perfect, I feel it's more human in a way, right? Especially in the day of age of AI and everything, where everything looks super clean and accurate. I feel like doing by hand, have a little bit of human error is, it's actually can make a drawing, a painting look interesting. And that doesn't mean that I won't try my best to make it look accurate. My previous painting, I gave that up. I want to redo it because it wasn't accurate enough. Right? Specifically, her left eyes, this eyes was a little bit too off to the side. So this is something that I definitely need to watch out for this time when I'm doing the drawing. Okay, so I think it's at a pretty decent place. So I'm going to switch to my mechanical pencil and start to lay down some of the landmark. Actually, I'm going to hide my face so it's less distracting. Okay. I think the benefit of doing this is that I don't need to do a lot of editing and do a voiceover again. So this will probably take a very long time, a long form video. You can probably, if you want to watch it, you can do it in different sessions. You can maybe just watch it or listen to it while you're working or whatever it is that you want. All right, so the brow line here, here's the eyebrow, and that comes down here. Here's a corner of the eye. So the width of a face is usually 5 eyes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Side of her face are kind of covered by the hair, so it will be a little bit easier. However, we do need the width of 3 eyes here. So in the middle, between 2 eyes, there should have a width of another eye. And I'll still draw pretty lightly to get that structure of her eye. So the upper eyelid here, and then the eyeball is in here. And she's looking off to the side, so I will just make some indication of the eyeball on the side here, corner of the eye here. Her upper eyelid sort of wrap in front of the lower eyelid here. That's how her eye is looking. Different from mine, but since I have drawn her, I've painted her for such a long time, I'm very familiar how her eye looks like. Okay. So upper eyelid here, lower eyelid over here. The upper eyelid goes down here in front of the lower eyelid here. And her iris looking off to the right side. Okay. And then it goes up a little bit. There's her eyebrow here. Okay. Now, something's kind of important right in the middle here. Okay, that's where the tip of the nose should be. So yeah, my nose is a little bit off to the left, so we need to be careful. Readjust the position. Okay, so here's the tip of the nose here. It's a little bit slightly, her head slightly tilted to the right, very, very minor though. So that's why we kind of see the tip of her nose sort of going this way. the wing of the nose here, the nostril. So right now, one thing that I want to check is I look at the photo, and if I draw a line from the corner of the eyes down, like directly down, okay, not following the orientation of her head, directly down, where does it land on the nose? Okay, it's a little bit left to this point of the wing of the nose. So wing of the nose is here, and this comes down actually quite a bit more to the left, to the wing of the nose on the left, right? So draw these construction lines very lightly, okay? So you can get rid of them, erase them very easily like so, okay? And also one thing is that we need to make them align correctly. So if it's going this way, this should be going this way as well. Okay. Oops, sorry. Right here, here. Okay. Something like that. So yeah, I'll say the nose looks pretty decent. I'm going to erase that construction line. So her nose here is not very prominent, again, because it's really bright. So need to draw pretty lightly. The nostril is a little bit more clear here. So I'll make a little bit of mark here. So wing of the nose here, wing of the nose here, and the tip of the nose, I will make a small indication, very light, like so. Okay, and the philtrum down here, again, is following the alignment of the head, tip of the lip, okay, the corner of the mouth, and again, we'll measure it directly upward. So I'm looking at a photo. If we draw a line up, it should be on the side, on the border of the iris here. So something like that. Okay. Now I'm drawing it out so you can see, but like in my mind, I'm doing a line here, and that's where the corner of her lip is. And the left eye here is from the corner down to the corner of her lips here. So there we go, going down like that. Is her lip, the lower lip right here. And then, okay, that's the bottom of her lip. Okay, so over here, like the color kind of ends here, but the bottom of her lip actually is over here. Okay, she kind of smiled, so her lower lip kind of tucked up a little bit. Okay, that's like halfway between the bottom of the nose to the chin. So chin is around here. I mean, those we can, still adjust a little bit. Nothing is written in stone right now, okay? But it's important that as we work on our drawing, we try to make it more and more accurate as needed. And I will probably erase a little bit more of a pencil lines, the construction lines. Okay, and let's work on her hand here. Hand is quite complex, so we're gonna divide the hand with the knuckle here. So it's the index finger, the middle finger, the ring finger. So the index finger coming down a little bit, middle finger, ring finger, and the pinky right here. We'll see the tip of the pinky here. Okay. Okay, so the back of her hand. Here we go. And the forearm here. And the sleeve. Okay, the sleeve is kind of puffy, which is quite cute. Okay, and here's the collar of the t-shirt inside. It's a collar of the shirt. So a lot of part of her upper body is covered by hair, which is going to be quite easy as long as I make the wash clean. When I have the experience of a prior painting, this shouldn't be too difficult for me. Again, the main thing is going to be making a good drawing. Her shoulder, the back, her shoulder sort of starts around here. Again, measure where it is on the face. Actually, a little bit, like right around the same level of the corner of the mouth. So over here, like that. And the seam for the shirt of the shoulder. There's a sleeve. There's some nice, wonderful folds over here. So a little bit of front pocket on the shirt. A little bit of button here. Those, because these are, clothes, though they don't need to be that accurate. The most accurate thing need to be the face. Okay, so I think we are at a good place. Let's clean up the drawing a little bit. Let's erase some of the construction line. I don't really need this anymore, but still, I'm still looking at it with all the construction line still there, as if the construction lines are still there. Okay, I'm still measuring the alignment and the size and the proportion. Everything needs to align. This should be right in the middle. Things like that. Okay, and I'll probably need to further define the eye a little bit. The position is right. The size is not bad. I just need to be a little bit more articulate on the shape of the eye here. Okay. Okay, over here. And then this one. Looking to the right, like so. Her left, our right. So the lip gonna make them a bit lighter. Philtrum. So like the dark seam, you know, of her lip. Okay, I'll make the corner of her lip goes up just a tiny little bit. So she's smiling. And I'll raise the left corner of her lip as well. In real life, her smile is usually a little bit more not as even, but since it's my painting, I can change it a little bit. Okay. Chin over here. Okay, the hand, I'm gonna do a little bit of cleanup as well. Lots of dull 4B pencil lines. So it's about 21 minutes. The drawing we should wrap up the drawing so we don't spend too much time on drawing, but it's portrait, so usually I don't feel too safe without spending enough time on the drawing. Okay, the pinky here. The hand should be like these. Okay. Might shrink the hand down just a little bit. Not too much, just a little bit. Yeah, because the hand is right next to the face. So if the size is really off, it's going to look very weird. Because everything is relative to each other. So if you have a hand right next to the face like these, that's a little bit of a challenge, right? So if the hand size is not really good, it's not really believable. Yeah, the whole thing, the proportion is just going to look off. Okay, so the hair, I'll probably just give it like a very basic shape. I won't be doing much detail. I'll use the brush to do that. So just like a basic big size where the hair is going to be. Okay, so that will be the drawing. I think it looks decent. I will pause the recording, double check, triple check even, and I'll come back tomorrow. I mean, in terms of the recording, I'll come back and start the painting. So that will give me enough time to examine my drawing before I start the first wash and everything. Okay, so let's start the painting. I will be starting off with first wash, which is the basic skin tone. And again, this specific painting is going to be very light in value, especially the skin tone, because she is lit by a very, very bright light. So Our basic skin tone will be orange with a touch of red. So will be something like that. It looks very saturated here, but we're gonna add quite a bit of water here. Right, so that will make it a lot lighter. And I will use a little bit of carmine, which is a very important color to introduce some of this the blush color and things like that. Right, so what I want to do actually is to start off by pre-wetting the paper, specifically where the skin is. I'll leave out the eye for now. I mean, I can paint into the eye a little bit, no problem. And a little bit of highlight on the nose. Those are not quite essential, but will be nice to preserve a little bit of highlight. The hand and stuff as well, right? And I'll start to paint into the color that I use, the color that I mix, and see how light that feels. Right, that's exactly what I want. For the initial wash anyways, we don't want to go anything too dark, right? That's not going to look good. Okay. And, for the nose, I'll leave just a little bit of highlight here, just a bit. Right. And I'll just bring that over to the hand area. There we go. Right, very, very light, as you can see. Now if I zoom in a little bit, let me lighten up the camera a little bit so you can see better. So yeah, about this value right here. And still quite wet right now, so this is a very good chance for me to add a bit of cooler color. I'll add some cobalt blue with a little bit of cerulean. Cerulean is a bit granular, which is fine, but I'll mix with a little bit of the cobalt blue, right? And we'll, not too much, just a little bit. Just introduce a little bit of the cool color here. Okay, so a bit of that here and here. Keep them very light. Okay, if you add too much blue, it can start to become dirty. That's what I mean. And paint outside the face, that's totally fine. Okay, everything else is going to be darker than a skin tone. And we'll use, I'll add a little bit of more red and orange. Okay, and adding some more kind of wet onto wet effect over here. We'll give it some basic value here. Right, there we go. There's that. The neck area, we'll get that in there. I'm actually gonna grab a paper towel and dab away, get rid of some of this color here. Okay, and a bit of a warm color here, a bit more here. Okay, so those kind of things, now is a very good chance for us to start to add a little bit of stuff here and there, a slightly more red here, and I'll add that to the tip of the nose. Okay, a bit of a carmine. I'm still using a very soft brush, so really just adding a bit of a color here and there. Okay, carmine is very strong, so that might be a bit too strong. So I'm actually going to dab it out with a paper towel. Okay, so a bit more water. I dried it a little bit, and yeah, that looks good. Okay, so it's starting to, the wash is starting to dry slowly, so we need to decrease the water that we have. Let me grab a little bit of this kind of cool color here, and I'll get that into the eye area. So this is why I pre-wet the paper first. It just gives me a lot more time to work wet on to wet. And today is quite cool as well, so it's a pretty ideal day for watercolor. Okay, all right. Now I'm going to use a nylon brush, which will be a good brush to paint more color, and because nylon brush absorb less water, is going to make the brush stroke a little bit more visible. The paint will not bloom out as much, right? So like that. I'm gonna do a little bit of test right here, okay, around the hair area, so I can kind of see how it works. So it's still a little bit moist, so I'm going to just throw that sort of orange color here. I add a bit of burnt sienna, and I'm just gonna use the tip of my brush, to add those paint in here, there. Okay, I'll try to dry my brush a little bit more. A bit of carmine here. Add a little bit of carmine into the mix, so a bit more red over here. Okay, a bit of a orange here. There we go. So a bit more reddish color down here, but I'll grab a little bit of blue and mix that in there. The color will turn a little bit purple, which is fine. And then a bit of a reddish color. Just the tip of my brush, get that in here. Okay. So right now, we're really just trying to get some soft transition in. Okay, a bit more orange. Okay, just tiny little bit here, like that. Okay. Bit of a blush here. All right. So the wash is starting to become dry. So that means the brush stroke is going to be more visible, and the edge is going to become, hard edges. Still a little bit moist in some of the areas, so this will be helpful for me to get a bit more sort of transition tone going. So over here, a bit of a shade for the shape of the eye socket. Okay. I'm drying my brush with a paper towel, so this is like pretty much a completely dry brush. Move it down here. I'll grab a little bit of this very thin carmine, connect the shape there. There we go. Okay, and I'll use that carmine for the lip. So a touch of carmine here and some orange, so that it's not going to be as cool of a red. So something like that. Bit of lip color here. So we're still doing sort of a wet onto wet paint right here. So not all of the shape is going to stay behind. But as the painting starting to dry, we're starting to tighten up our brush strokes. And at this point, I'm still not using any color that's very strong. Okay. I need to be like a little bit patient without trying to rush ahead too much. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna switch to a smaller brush and start to get into the feature detail a little bit. So that feels a little bit strong. I'm gonna add a bit of moisture to it so I can carry that paint elsewhere. Okay, so I'm gonna start doing the eye. So cobalt blue, burnt umber, we have a sort of a neutral gray. I'll add a bit more umber with grabbing a little bit of that warm orange color here, and that turns into like a warm gray. And then I'm just gonna use this color. I'll leave out a little bit of highlight for the eye, okay? So something like that. Okay, so same thing over here. So we'll definitely need to come back and darken some part of the eye, but for now, this is pretty good. This is as dark as we want to get at this given stage. So grabbing a little bit of this red color here. A lot of color that you already mix on the palette will be very helpful. Pick up from those. You don't always have to remix the color. Sometimes when you use the pre-mixed color that you already have, your painting will be a little bit easier, make it a bit more harmonious, because essentially they are from the same color. Need to mix just a little bit more color. Now those colors, the red and orange, these are very strong colors, so dilute them with some water. Okay, and then on the corner of the eye, so something like that. Okay, a bit of the shadow under the eyelid here, something here. I'll try to work them together for now. The corner of the eye here, the upper eyelid here, it wraps around, wraps in front of the lower eyelid. Okay, this is a little bit too strong of an edge, so I'm gonna just soften it like so. Okay, with a dry, damp, clean brush. Same thing as here. There we go. And I'll grab a little bit of this kind of brownish color, gray. A bit more warm. Grab a little bit of warm color, mix into that gray. And that will be a good color for the eyebrow. So now her eyebrow is not that thick. So what we're going to do is to put down some stroke, some color shape like that over here. Okay, around the start of the eyebrow. Okay, like that. Gonna wash our brush, dried it, and just bring that color out with a damp brush. Something like that. Okay, so just bring that color over. Okay, soften this. So dry damp brush like so. All right. We'll move down to. Yeah, this is pretty much dry enough. I will add a little bit more hints for the structure here. Okay, so connecting from the add just a little bit more red. Feels a little bit too orange. Connect with the eyebrow here. If you squint your eyes, these shape merges. So these shapes all kind of merge into the dark over here. Connect to the corner of the eye here. Connect that down here. Okay, and a bit darker, and sort of reddish, a touch of carmine. Okay, to connect to the cheek. Okay, wash my brush, dried it, and now actually bring that over a little bit. So think about where you want the shape to end. Do you want to soften it a little bit, or do you want to, do you want to soften it a little bit, or do you want to just leave it a hard edge? And there are places for different type of brush strokes, right? Sometimes you do want to have a little bit of hard edge to suggest structure and form, right? If everything is soft edge, your portrait will look a little bit mushy. That might not be what you want. So connect that to the chin here. I'll leave a little bit of light here because it's like a muscle structure. Her hand sort of pushes that muscle structure there. So have a little bit of that. It's nice. Okay. And grabbing a little bit more of a color here. I feel like this got lost here. I want to connect that down here. Okay, so this is where the nylon brush gets pretty useful, because if you use a big soft brush, there's going to be too much paint, too much water, right? So use the nylon brush, allow me to paint in lighter color and also not too wet, so the paint will be a lot easier to control. Okay, that little shape will help the nose, the structure of the nose. A little bit of a soft carmine color connect to the corner of the eye here. Okay, soften that edge here so it feels like there's like a space going on. Okay, and this is dried enough. I will paint a shape down like so. Leave a tiny little bit of gap here that shows the thickness of the lower eyelid. I'll probably go over with the eraser a little bit later. It feels a little bit dirty right now because of the graphite, but yeah, we should be able to erase quite a bit of those colors. I mean graphites. Okay, here, and also a little bit of the structure here. Right. Again, this is the second time I painted this painting, and I'm definitely feeling a lot better in this attempt because I have a little bit more time to get prepared with the the drawing, and I learned from my mistake from the last painting as well. So bit of a carmine here so it doesn't make it feel so white. All right, and orange, some red, some carmine. Okay, we'll add a little bit of a dark here where the hair is going to cover the face. Okay, and a bit of a soften here. It's just like a transition. Now, anything that's painted on the hair, we don't have to worry about it. They will be a lot darker later. Carmine here. All right. Okay, just a little bit more sort of blush going on. All right. Okay, a bit of like orange right here, where the wing of the nose, between the wing of the nose and the cheek, there's that little bit of muscle structure. We don't have to emphasize too much on it, but we don't want to make the face flat as well. So, okay, nostril here. Don't paint the nostril too black. Okay, just a bit darker, a bit. I won't even say darker, just like a bit more rich. Warm color. Okay, so here is the tip of the nose. I want to have a bit of a carmine here on the tip. Yes. Okay, bring that paint over with a dry, damp brush. A little bit of a value shape down here. Connect that to the nostril. I'll bring that value down to the philtrum. Okay, so shape connects. Okay, so we'll soften this a little bit. Soften the tip a little bit. Bring this value over. A bit more down here. Okay, we need to lighten this up a little bit. So I'm gonna use a bit of a water and I'm just gonna press it with a paper towel. Get that lightened up a little bit. Okay. So lip, zoom back in. So a bit of the orange color. Again, you don't have to remix everything you have. Like a lot of color that I mix a little bit, and that's already enough for, you know, many different part of the painting. Yeah, if we try to remix all the colors, it's going to get too intense too quickly. Okay, a bit of the lip color here. Here. Okay. So nose is casting. I won't even say casting shadow. It's just like a very faint, you know, occlusion of the light, very faint. So just kind of connect that shape there. So everything I do right here is just very, very light. All right. Okay, a bit more blue. There's burnt umber, get a bit darker color for the pupil here, and a bit of a reinforcement around the eye, around the iris. So I think this is what I'm gonna do. Like some of those graphite really bothers me. So I'm going to blow this dry and then I'll go over it with eraser a little bit. Fill that with my finger a little bit, no longer dry. So I'm just gonna go over it with my eraser very gently. Don't go over too hard, okay? You're gonna damage the paper. Our purpose is not that. It's just trying to erase some of the graphite there. Okay, that's going to just make it look better, you know, less dirty for the lips and the nose as well. Okay, there we go. Okay, that looks better. A few shapes we want to adjust a little bit while we still can. So this dark color, yeah, this stroke feels a little bit odd. I'm going to kind of fix it a little bit like that. And over here, we need to make the upper eyelid, shadow of the upper eyelid a bit darker here. Okay, and a bit more sort of reddish color here. we go. Okay, so now we're gonna start to add some more dark in some of the places. So the nostril, again, we don't need to make it too dark. Okay, still mostly just like a warm color, but just a bit of a hint here. Okay, so we paint the shape and it come in, with a damp brush so we can kind of carry that color in some areas. Okay, I'm gonna wash my brush so we got less color on my brush. Can carry that paint there. And give it a little bit of a hint of the eye here, structure here. Okay. Okay, this camera right here, the zoom camera, gives a little, got a little bit of distortion going on. So like the face feels a little bit squashed. All right. Yeah. This is a little bit more distorted free, but anyways, it's just for me to show you the detail. All right. Oops. Yeah. Okay. Bit of a oops, a bit too much blue. A little bit of that. Okay, going down like so. And we'll connect to some of the skin tone here. Okay. So darker and warmer. Okay. Again, it's fine to paint outside of the, the quote unquote boundary, because once we paint the hair down, it's going to be a lot darker. We'll just cover that right up. Okay, I'll use a bit of alizarin crimson, touch of orange, some red. I mean, we're just trying to make some darker, warm color. And just cool that down a little bit so that we can start to paint some of the darker areas, like the corner of the mouth here. So just the tip of our brush, do this. And here in the center of the lip here. Like, we don't want to paint like a line, going over the whole thing. Just, okay, it's still a little bit damp there, so the paint is going up. But yeah, I think just by doing this, we make it looking a little bit better. I'm gonna bring that color out just a little bit so that it doesn't feel like a line, but instead it feels like a shape, a structure. Here we go. I'm trying to make the nose kind of pop out a little bit without making it too dark, so just a little bit of that. Okay. Alright, I think that looks decent. She has like a little mole here. I'm actually gonna just kind of dot that in. Very light, very gentle. Alright. I think that looks good. Let's move on from the face to some other part. I'm gonna start to paint the hand a little. We'll try to simplify the hand a bit more, otherwise it's gonna be distracting from from the rest of the portrait. The hand is complex, but it is not our focus. So a bit of a cool color here, so we won't get too hot. So just a bit of the dark here. We're creating that occlusion. Here we go. A bit of that. I'll add a little bit of carmine when I need to, cool the color off a little bit, but still maintain some sort of a redness to it. Okay, so a bit of a water to soften the shape. Okay, a bit of this structure, hint of structure here. I want this pinky to be a little bit lighter here. I think it's the wetness makes the color bleed a little bit too much. There we go. Okay, a bit of a pinkish color here. Soften that edge right here. So it's just going to be a bit of a value hint. Okay, I think we are at a pretty good place. I think it is time for me to start to do the initial wash for the hair and the jacket. Now, we definitely need more than one wash for both, because hair is really dark. The jacket is actually pretty dark as well, and the hair being darker. So I do like to have, the shot of that beautiful phthalo blue or cerulean blue for Mission, but it's phthalo blue for most other brands. As in why I use that color, I don't know. I just really like this color, so I try to kind of incorporate that in my painting. Now, of course, we don't see that color specifically on the in the photo reference, but it doesn't really matter. It is my painting, so I can add a bit of interesting color when I needed to. So as you can see, this initial color is actually quite transparent, but we need to be careful already not to paint into the face. Okay, so a bit of a kind of red here, and I'm gonna paint that to the thumb here. Okay. So umber and some blue, get some dark, make it a little bit warmer. And now we can throw some paint wet onto wet in here to just try to make it, a bit darker right here. This kind of shows some thickness of the hair, but I don't want to make the hair too complex too. Like, this is a very dark hair, and the function of the hair is really just trying to bring out the shape of the skin, the hand and the face. That's all we're trying to do here. So we're not trying to get like a very complex shape. Okay, here, and a bit of a blue. I'm gonna cool off the color a bit, and I'm gonna bring this over to the shirt she's wearing inside. And I'm going to start to mix a blue color. Do a bit of a test here. Looking good. And that will be our jacket, the shirt color. Okay. And we don't have to separate them right now. Okay. The hair and the jacket, the shirt, not the jacket, the hair and the shirt, they can blend with each other for now. Before it is completely dry though, I'm gonna see if I can add a bit of a warmth here as like a transition between the hair and the skin. Now I already have some of that, but doesn't feel like it's strong enough now that I paint the hair in. So luckily we still got room to push. Right, so this is what I mean when I say you don't want to paint too dark in the beginning. Give it some room so you can have room for adjustment. Okay, okay, that edge is too hard. I'm gonna soften it with a damp brush. Here as well. Okay, so that So this big brush, definitely a little bit scary at this stage. Still painting some big shape, but I need to trust the process. And if I see these not really connecting well, then I'll darken whatever is needed. All right, not lingering too much because the paint is drying pretty rapidly. Okay, so over here, we're going in here. Oops, don't do that. So blue here. I'll leave just a tiny little bit of highlight there on the edge of the sleeve and stuff, but don't have to sweat it too much. Her clothes is not the main focus of the painting, so we can be a little bit loose. That's fine. Okay, a bit more water just to get that, just to cover with that color as much as we can. So just get some shape, some color in. Okay. I actually think we can paint a little bit of background right now, so I'll add maybe a little bit of just kind of like a grayish color, a bit more burnt umber, a bit of a kind of warmish gray color. Sure, she use a bigger brush for that. Will be easier and perhaps cleaner. Okay. Just to add a little bit of a sense of space behind her. Okay, this a little bit too much bead. I'm gonna soak it up a little bit, suck it up with the paper towel. All right. Already we're starting to see a better, the painting is taking place. Okay, now this is pretty wet, so actually I will think of it as a good time to do some wet onto wet. So there we go. Bring some more of this nice saturated blue in here. We don't have to paint any sort of definition for now. It's not really necessary, but think of us, we're trying to create that kind of wash, that denim wash with watercolor, right? And again, the clothes is not the main focus of the painting, so we can make it a little bit more loose. Okay. Some more, darker blue down here. Bit of a yeah. There we go. Okay. So at this stage, I think everything is starting to look pretty good. And yeah, I think it's a good time for us to maybe make the hair a bit darker. So I'll try to keep the top of her hair a little bit lighter, so it's not too heavy on the top, so I can still kind of preserve a little bit of that that blue color that I painted, which I like quite a bit. Here we go. Okay, here. I'm actually going to take another brush and paint a little bit more transition as we do this. So the dark warm color mixed with the hair, like so. Okay, now we can just kind of stop right there. Okay, and wash my brush. A bit of a carmine mix with that warm color, and that will be on this side. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so the thumb here, I make it a bit darker. I think that's a little bit too dark. I'm gonna press it with a paper towel. Yeah. Okay, so this top here, I want it to be a bit softer. All right. Here we go. And we'll bring this value down. Okay. A bit more here, over here. Now this paint is nice and dark. So this is probably as dark as I'm going to make it. A bit of a carmine, bit of a warmer as we come down here. Okay, and now we need to kind of be a little bit more careful. Use my nylon brush for some finer hair strength, something like that. something like that. That looks good. Continue on this side. Okay, a bit more blue. Okay, I feel like this part is a little bit too thick, but I will try to treat that a little bit later. Okay, down here is still moist, so the hair is going to kind of bloom out a little bit, which is not too bad. All right, so I don't know if this will work, but because it's so thick here, I'm going to soften that a little bit and just kind of blot it out with a paper towel, see if that helps. Yeah, I think that does help. I think that actually looks kind of interesting. Feels like there's a little bit of light going on. I'll soften some of that. Yeah. I'll soften this edge as well if I can do that. Just like the hair is really dark down here, so I try not to make it too dark, too heavy on the top. Okay. So a little bit of the bloom going on there, I think is fine. We'll deal with that a little bit later. Over here is some hair too. So some hair down here. I think it's interesting because down here it's still pretty moist, so you start to see a little bit of bleeding. But I actually think that might be interesting because even in the photo, you see like if you kind of squint your eyes, they all kind of merge into dark value. So I think it might be interesting if we have a little bit more sense of lost and found here. So some hair straight here, going like that. Yeah, I think that actually look quite interesting. I just hope that as it's still kind of evolving, it won't turn into something very horrendous. But so far, it looks fine. I'll kind of bring that value over here. Get some dark in here. Okay. Bit of a dark here in the collar. Okay, so that shadow will make the hand looks a little bit more three-dimensional, feels like it's coming out from the sleeve. Just, tiny little detail like those makes it have a little bit more believability. And we are near the end. We just need to get some of detail in. A bit of a more yellowish color for the button here. Over here as well. There's a little bit of that here. Okay, so some more darker blue. We need to have a little bit more darker blue for the shirt here. Okay, yeah, darker blue, but a little bit more saturated. Like it gets a little bit too dirty down here. Here. Okay. So down here where the pocket is. So I do think we might need to paint a little bit of sharper shape later, but I think for now we'll just kind of live with it for now. Here. Okay, this blue color is going to be helpful to bring out the sleeve here. So a little bit of dry brushing. Go. Okay, so I'm gonna do this very quickly. So for the sleeve, the wrinkle, the fold, we're mostly just going to do something like these. Now don't start to outline everything, leave in a little bit of gap. That actually makes it look a little bit more realistic. So here's that. Here's another fold, wrinkle stuff here. And then we'll soften some of the edge here. Right, that start to give you a sense of folding and bumpiness. Okay, this feels like lines, so we actually need to bring some of this value out. Okay, here we go. So something like that. It's just as long as we can start to, we can still feel that just a little bit of form going. Okay. I do want some kind of dark accents in some of the areas. Okay, so just a few dark like that. See how it start to feel like there's more depth, there's more thickness. Again, don't overdo this. You can very quickly overwork this thing, but just a bit of that. Wow, it is still dark, still wet. Bring that value down here as well. A bit of a carmine, I feel like we just want to just get it a little bit more interesting. It's all so blue, and I do see a little hints of pink in the color as well. So, all right, continue on this side. We are some seam, and we'll just want to leave out a little bit of light for the colors. And again, these are some faux and some some of the areas for the sleeves that kind of so close together. It creates faux and wrinkles and stuff. Again, obviously, we're not able to paint everything we see, but we can try to hint them as much as possible. Okay, this is too much. So this dark goes behind where this part of the clothes come in front. Yeah, it's a little bit hard to see right now because everything is just, the folds become so complex down here, but again, we'll try to paint them with some looseness here. All right, same thing, we'll soften some of these edges here, like over here, and a little bit up here. Okay, and now time starts on dark, so we use more paint. And there we go, a little bit of that here. It's still wet, so it's gonna bleed out a little bit, but we're using our nylon brush here, so that should be able to retain some of its shape. There we go. Bring that contrast out. Okay, a bit of a pinkish purplish color over here. Okay, bring that down here. Right. simplify some of the areas. I feel it gets a little bit too complex. So this is a little bit difficult for me to explain what I'm doing because a lot of it is just pure intuitive. So like this shape feels a little bit too big. Let me shrink it down a little bit. And these, I need to bring that out. It's helpful to kind of step back a little bit and see how the overall painting look. Are there areas that I need to define a little bit, like over here? Wanted to feel like there's a fold here. Okay, and yeah. Okay, I think this is good. It's a little bit of something that I want to adjust, like top of the head here. Feels like the forehead is a little bit too high. So I'll paint a bit of a dark color here. And I'll probably add a little bit more hair here. So yeah, just, I don't know, just a little bit of adjustment here and there. Okay, and I think I can try to add a little bit more definition of the hair here. So alright, so I think I'm working on this painting pretty long already, so really need to wrap it up before I overwork this. Before I make this video way too long. Okay. Alright, I think this is good. We're at a good place. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy this demo. I think I need to wait for it to dry and give it a little bit more of a final adjustment later. Like over here, we need a little bit more separation between shirt and the and the inner t-shirt. But we might need to wait a little bit after it's more dry. Or actually, that feels dried enough. Yeah, like this final stage right here feels like you can kind of noodle on it forever, but generally not a very good idea too. So yeah, I really need to think about if I should continue on or just kind of let it be. Okay, I hope you enjoy this painting demo. I feel like the eye can kind of adjust a little bit. Feels a little bit too big over here, but I think overall I am happier with this one than the last painting. But always feel like you can do a better job as well, and as part of the journey of painting, you can always feel like you're chasing an ideal version of the attempt that you're making. And yeah, I think we'll just continue to paint, continue to learn, and hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are. I will see you guys next time.